Wow. Now I know Joe Travers. I know him well. I know he's the vault master, the vault meister. Sorry, people go. He called him the masters. Zappa. People are.
Yeah.
He's so wrong there. It's the meister. Get it right.
Yeah.
I don't know why I became Scott Tunis there, but um, he he takes care of a lot of the audio. But I was unaware that Frank filmed a lot of stuff, and and really went to town with that. So there had to be tons of different formats, right? You had 8 millimeter. Did you have like Kodachrome and Beta and all those different videos?
We had every conceivable kind of format, every conceivable kind. We had 8 mil, Super 8, 16, 35, and then every format of video going back to reel 1 inch and 2 inch. Then he was cutting on 3/4. Then he started cutting on betas and digibetas. Then he started cutting on and this is him. Like he would transfer stuff, media he was shooting onto new forms and recut on those. So it was like a living art project unto itself down there. And we had to find machines that didn't exist anymore and proprietary preservation people who, like a guy who just does 1 inch and another person who only does 2 inch. They built a machine that's all they do. And that became our life day in, day out. We were baking tapes at night in our office to get moisture out of audio and videotape. It was an insane process.
Now, was it all labeled? And how did you, like, I mean, did it say like Frank went to Germany, or was it like the family, or how was that labeled?
It was it was not a mess, but it wasn't perfectly identified. He was very thorough. So he would label things as best he could, but he would move things constantly, and time would move things. And then his label wouldn't be something that really gave you very much. It wouldn't be like perfectly logged. It is now, but it sure as hell wasn't then. So we would find a box of 8 mil from the 40s, from like even pre his life, that he had collected and cut on, mixed in with some 8 Super 8 he had shot. And then we would find the sound for that in a completely different box when we were preserving something else. So it was really like a puzzle of a trillion pieces that had been scrambled and put in 100 different boxes.
So, how do you figure out the narrative of this film? Do you have to watch everything in the vault and then go, okay, here's how I want to take it. We're going to start here in, the early days of his first band and that great studio and all that shit he did. Do you start to get an idea as you're watching all the footage? Because you got to watch it all and then go, oh, okay, here's what I want to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a multi-fold process when you're making documentaries, even very archival heavy docs like this. And because I come from narrative, I tend to start with a script. It doesn't remain. I mean, it's constantly in flux, but it has kind of an anchored foundation to it that is a story that's essentially one that I know I can tell and that I think is worth telling. Mike Nichols, the editor, is highly involved in that, but then the way I like to work, editorial kind of runs on its own track with us converging and working together so that he can go find stuff on his own and he can craft ideas on his own. I sort of supervise that whole process, but I have to leave that process alone to let it do its thing. So that's just kind of a continual back and forth that goes on for years, frankly. And then you're finding blind alleys, you're finding new stuff in the media that takes you on a different tack. But I had a particular story in my head, and I knew that the basic through line of Frank's life, I knew would work. And in fact, it was reinforced by what we found in the vault more than unenforced, thankfully. So we would find stuff that backed up what we were doing all the time from Frank's own mouth. And that made it very helpful. And it was guided by the fact that I knew Zappa pretty well and had read the books and had listened to a lot of him talking. And so I knew his opinion on a lot of issues and a lot of his own life history.